Do you have a story to tell or a message that the world needs to hear? Have you struggled with reaching new audiences who are engaged with your story or message? If so, it might be time for you to start a podcast. Let me tell you about a platform that I love and use. Riverside. Riverside is the #1 place to start a high quality podcast built for growth from day one. With 4K video recording or from your phone and AI editing that automatically removes as, ums, yanos, and many other speech patterns, Riverside makes it super easy to make a podcast that sounds great. Ready to tell your story or share your message with the world? Check out the link in the show note description to learn more about Riverside and get a 15% discount. There's a 15% discount off a paid subscription. Now, let's dive into today's episode. In this episode, we have done something different as we are joined by not just one, but two guests, Rich Ahlers and Robert Flis, who are returning guests on the podcast as we explore the topic of health and share our health principles for our physical movement, aka exercise, nutrition, sleep, and stress management. In this episode, you get to learn what is working for us right now, the principles that we abide by to help us navigate the field of health, and why seeking perfection isn't the answer when it comes to our health, longevity, and well-being. I'm really excited for this one, guys, to be doing something different, having two guests on the podcast, two of my close friends, actually. Rob and Rich have become close friends as we have collaborated a lot, spoken a lot of times, and I always get to learn something new from the both of them, and so I'm really happy that we've been able to make this happen, and now happy to be able to share this episode with you. So without further ado, let's dive into the episode where you get to learn the principles that all three of us use to navigate the field of health, which sometimes can be overwhelming. Hey everyone, welcome back to the show Raising Consciousness, and today is a very special episode as it's the first time that I've had two guests on at the same time, but they're not strangers to the podcast. We've got Robert and Rich joining us. Rich, this is like your third time on the show, and Rob, this is your second. So no strangers to the show. But Rob, I'll start with you. We were talking beforehand, before we went live, just like a quick catch up. How is everything with you? What's new?
Lots is new. I've been working pretty hard, taking on a few new challenges. On the family side, I was just telling you and Rich that my daughter, my 5-year-old, just started kindergarten, so that's been a big deal for our family, getting her going in school. And on my end, I've been training for a half marathon that I signed up for in October. So doing a lot of running, doing a lot of leg days at the gym, and trying to get myself prepared for that. So that's been one of my main focuses lately.
Amazing. Yeah, well, this conversation is all about health, so we'll kind of touch on some of the physical fitness side. But are you more of a gym guy or cardio guy? Like, where do you normally kind of reside on the spectrum of lifting weights or running? Personally, I'm a more cardio guy, so that's kind of like how I got more into physical fitness side. And then realized the importance of strength training, resistance training. Like I afterwards, like, oh shit, I have to be doing this. But yeah, I went to the running first. How about yourself?
I never considered myself to be much of a cardio guy. I always enjoyed going to the gym, but my tendency was to go to the weightlifting side. But my introduction to cardio started when I got signed up for a 5K run through my work. And so that went pretty well. And then I graduated to a 10K run the next time. And now I got roped into doing a half marathon, which is 21.1 kilometers. So that's going to be a big challenge.
Yeah, well, let us know how it goes.
Will do.
Rich, how about you? I know you just got back from your holidays. How's everything on your end?
It's great, thanks. Yeah, we just got back from a special trip out in Sicily. I took my older daughter and myself. We did a little bit of an ancestry excursion, some relaxing, and potentially looking at some investments there because we are possibly considering moving to Italy in the next 4 years for many reasons about health, speaking of which. So, but it was great. Yeah, things are great on my end. Same as Rob, kids back to school, things we're focusing on there. And other than that, yeah, just staying on my routine and enjoying, the rest of the warm weather we've got.
Amazing. And to bring you in on that little conversation beforehand, are you more typically lean towards more like strength training weights, or a bit, or do you like both, or do you prefer cardio? Like, what if you have a preference, what's your preference?
Yeah, I I actually loathe like standard analog cardio. I'm not built for it, but I like passive cardio, which meaning like when I do my martial arts practice, that's very much cardio, cardiovascular activity and some strength training. But I'm not thinking about it because I'm doing things in the process versus like going out for a run, which I struggle with that. I just don't like running. So right now, if it's not martial arts, it's probably more strength training, hitting the gym, doing dynamic functional movements, kettlebells, things like that.
Yeah, excellent. Well, let's start there because, guys, this episode is all about health, and we've kind of all connected through that, really. Ultimately, I remember when Robert, it must have been a couple of years ago, I first went on Rob's podcast, Breakthrough Podcast. I'll link that down below for people who want to check that out. And the topic of health came up there. We were kind of talking about how we both navigate health, because I think in that episode, Rob, was it about? Forgive me if I'm wrong. How we were talking about how sometimes it can become quite overwhelming with all of health information out there. It's one time, one quote unquote expert says this and others says this. I think, Rich, we've kind of spoke about the extremes of health as well. So we've touched on the physical fitness side there. So what does your weekly routine look like from a physical fitness side? Do you have any kind of standard principles you follow to keep your from a physical fitness side on top and that, really? So I think if we start there, that'd be good. We've also already alluded to it a bit, but Rob, do you have any principles? Do you feel like you have a well balanced routine across strength training? Obviously now you're kind of got that more focused goal of the marathon, but talk to us about physical fitness from your standpoint.
Yeah, it's changed a little bit since I've gotten into the running. So I've integrated a few running days into my routine to replace a couple of gym days, but I still do go to the gym. I still squat and I do kettlebells. I haven't kind of slacked too much in that department. And my principle has always been to just try to move every day. Regardless of what it is. I'm not too picky about what my routine looks like for the day. If I don't feel particularly well to go and lift weights one day, I'll replace that with a walk or a jog or something like that. And I don't beat myself up about it. So really the idea is just to get myself moving, and whatever that means. I also spoke about this with Rich when he joined me on my show, but on Saturdays I typically work out outdoors with a friend of mine, and we do a kettlebell routine every Saturday through most of the year. We go until it gets pretty cold outside, basically until there's snow. So that's a great part of my week too. It's maybe the highlight.
Talk to us about the kettlebell work. Definitely want to get one. So I'm curious about that.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. It's a 30-minute routine where we just we cycle through 2 different exercises, and we at intervals. So it's basically interval training, but it's kind of it's endurance as well as strength training, kind of wrapped into one. That's why I kind of like it. It's not so intense that you're unable to breathe, but it's just enough that you're rested for the next rep. And the idea is that every set that you do is you're able to give it 100%. So you're not wearing yourself out by the end of the workout. It's always very manageable.
Very interesting. And Rich, yourself?
Yeah, so I think my morning routine, kind of shared on some of the podcasts with you guys earlier, is I have a set routine, but I tend to break it a lot depending on how I feel. So even this week, coming back from jet lag, I actually spent more time walking several miles every day with the dog outside first thing, just to kind of recalibrate my circadian rhythm, try to get my energy levels up and kind of adapt to the time zone changes. But similar, to Rob too, is I usually do about 3 days of strength training at minimum in the gym. And that's usually doing kettlebell workouts with body weight workouts in addition. And I tend to what I guess they call supersets, right? Because I don't follow all the lingo, but where I do 2 exercises back to back in the so I may do like a leg and a shoulder, or I may do a push and a pull, and then I take a break after those two rounds or those 2 sets, and then I repeat and go through a bunch of different exercises. And then I actually started slacking on my stretching game just because there's only so many things you could do in a day. So I actually started putting more emphasis on my stretching game again, just because of my martial arts practice. And as the colder weather comes, it's hard to be more flexible as we age. I feel it. That's something else I'm kind of putting a little emphasis on right now. That's about it. And other than that, it's like anything outside I can do in the yard or physical work is fair game. So love doing that.
Talk to us about, and so I'll start with you, Rich, and then we'll come back to Rob. Like, because you both have a very similar approach, and this is an approach that I've, in a way, I guess, struggled with, I guess, by some of the content that I've consumed of, like, it sounds like you guys follow very much of a routine where listening to your body on the day before you exercise or move, but you're still going to move depending on how you feel, where a lot of, I guess, programming or kind of content that I've kind of engaged in around physical fitness is like, no matter how you feel, like, you get up and you do the workout because, like, builds character, right? And there's days where I've like woke up and I've been like, oh, it's meant to be my resistance training, functional training day, and I'm like, oh, like, I just don't feel it. And then I'm just like, because I do all my training from home, right? So I've got all the equipment and stuff. Not a gym guy, but anyway. So, I've got resistance bands, weights, etc. from home. And I'm just like forcing myself through it, right? Now, sure, by the end of it, do I feel, quote unquote, better than I did beforehand? Yeah, because I guess I'm still moving my body. But just like that mindset of like giving yourself almost permission to, I don't know, like, does that make sense, Rich? Like
Yeah.
you might have seen it within like the physical fitness sectors. It's this message of like, no matter how you feel, like, you get up and you do the workout. And yeah, and I've struggled with that basically. That's what I'm trying to say, guys.
No, I know exactly what you're saying. And I'm not insulting anybody, hopefully, but like, there's this big push on social media, to your point, about like this alpha male stuff, where it's like, just do it. Don't be a bitch, do it, like, suck it up. But the reality is, like, I don't think there's anything wrong with that if that's what people want to do. But like, kind of what you're alluding to is like, I tend to listen to my body, especially as I'm getting older. And if I'm not into it, or my heart's not into it, then I'm going to do something that my body wants to do. And I say that because, and I do that because workouts shouldn't be painful. We should not enjoy them. We should enjoy the exercise, and we should feel good about it. And if we're not, then that's not in calibration with like ourselves, like our interests. And so I think it's important to just, do things that make you happy. So, like, to your point, I would love to have gone out and done a hard workout today. I was tired, even though I'm trying to like get some sleep and everything. So I did a 3-mile walk. And if I get some time later to do some heavier activity, great. But I'm not going to beat myself up for it. As long as I do things that are in alignment with my body, my interests, what I feel like doing. However, caveat, if it's one day, like you and I think, talked about this on a podcast previously. It's like, if it's one day, fine. Like, that's not going to break your life. It's not going to break your routine. But if it starts to become a habit where you just don't want to do it, and you don't want to do it, and you don't want to do it, now you're falling into a routine of like becoming complacent. And maybe it's not the workout, maybe it's the lifestyle behaviors, right? But all in all, I would say, like, I trust my body before I trust like a program, of doing something I think I'm supposed to do.
Yeah, I definitely feel like within that, as you called it, like that alpha male kind of culture, it's like not listening to our body and like how we feel, and so like we're just gonna like push through it. But then on like the other side, I think so. Maybe especially with more, I don't know if you agree with me here, like weight training as well. Maybe is it also meant to be like a little bit outside of our comfort zone to help us to grow, but we're also meant to enjoy it? That's kind of like, or it's not meant to be like so we're meant to enjoy it, but also push ourselves outside our comfort zone. That's kind of what I'm hearing.
Yeah, we should. Like, there should be a fine line of like doing things that make us stronger, and we have to go a little bit through that grit and that pain, but we're enjoying these types of exercises, right? Like, if we're leaning in towards the things that we like, I think we'll be much more likely to be successful and not hate it. But the other thing I do too, like, I don't know if you guys think about this, but like even when I do workouts I generally will like, but I'm having like a tired day or I don't want to do it, I'll start to say things to myself like, I get to do this. I'm grateful that I'm able to do this. And I even, even to get like detailed in my head, sometimes I'll even say to myself, like, there are people that don't have arms and legs that they can use. There are people that are, debilitated. I'll literally run this through my head sometimes and go like, you get to do this. Like some people can't do this. And that usually gives me like a little bit of that motivation to be like, all right, maybe I don't have 150% of the gas tank today, but I'm going to do the exercises with a little less weight or a little less restriction, but I'm going to do them. I'm going to get them
done. Rob, your thoughts on this?
100%. I agree with Rich. I find that it's important to build a positive association with whatever you're doing. And so like, while there is definitely a benefit to being able to grind through pain, and yes, it does build character. It's a good thing to be able to deal with adversity. You don't want to be doing that every day or too often, because ultimately it's going to teach your body that working out is struggle, right? And we want it to be associated with, ease and grace and just, doing things with power and with, confidence, right? Instead of feeling like it's a struggle. So to me, like that's part of it too, is wanting to have that experience, of enjoying the workout and that your body is getting as much out of it as it can, rather than just trying to scrape by.
Rob, what do you make on the, as me and Rich was talking there, like the alpha male kind of culture? I'm sure you've come across it. Have you fell victim to it, or not?
Yeah, I think in my younger days at the gym, I guess that was more of what I was exposed to. And so that's what I kind of gravitated towards, even though I was never really big into bodybuilding, and I'm not a big guy to begin with. So I was never very serious about it, but I just kind of mimicked what I saw others doing at the gym, which was, a lot of chest and arms and stuff like that. The typical, like gym bro stuff, quote unquote. But as I kind of like developed my routine more and got exposed to different practices and different people, and information, I've kind of changed my workout routine to be more well-rounded and less I guess one-dimensional. So like more dynamic movements, compound movements, a lot more lower body stuff. I probably train my legs more than any other part of my body, and so it's not about looking a certain way for me anymore. It's about feeling good, and it's about being strong. I'm stronger now than I was when I was just doing, bench press and bicep curls.
Rich, you mentioned beforehand in terms of your stretching routine, that kind of, in my mind, linked to mobility as well, because I think that a lot of people kind of just see physical fitness through like either cardio running or like strength training, right? But then we also have like just generally like our stretching, mobility, etc. Did you have like a set stretching routine, or again just go with your body and how you feel?
Yes, I mean, doing martial arts since I was 6, I kind of have a lot of programming from the stretching routines that we would do. But what's funny is a lot of the routines that we do in our stretching are also common stretch techniques that people would do. Probably not in the sequences that we do them or as structured, but they're general stretches, right? For your hip flexors, your hamstrings, your glutes, your IT band, etc. So I don't have a normal flow. I usually will stretch things that I think need to be stretched. And generally, like to Rob's point, I train more legs, and for martial arts, there's a lot of leg power that comes out of our training. So I do focus a lot on the lower half, so my hamstrings, my quads, my hip flexors, being able to open up some of that, some of those channels. And then also my shoulders, my neck, and even my chest from like working at a desk, right? So there's certain things I'll try to focus on depending on my exercises I did for the workout or my functional movements that are important. I think one thing, going back to what Rob said too, is like, similar to him, I don't train for aesthetics. I train for functionality, and I train to be able to do the same things I do today 40 years from now. Squatting, lunging, picking up things, carrying things, being limber and flexible. What's impressive to me is and maybe it's because I've been stretching my whole life, but what's impressive to me is seeing guys my age and slightly older than me, how rigid they are, like how stiff these guys are. Even the guys in the gym, like they're lifting a lot, but they're so rigid that like I pause on that a little bit because I'm like, all right, you don't need to be, putting your leg on your shoulder, but being very rigid also has a lot of negative health effects over time. So I just try to make sure that I maintain some type of limberness because of longevity. I want to, it's funny, when I was in Sicily last week, I was amazed by how many 60 and 70-year-olds were riding bikes and hiking and walking up all these steps, right? Because we see it in videos, but like actually seeing these people doing this stuff every time I go there, I'm just like blown away by it. And the way that they're able to do that is because they're constantly using those muscles and constantly strengthening and stretching and doing that. Like picking up baskets of flour or whatever, right? But they're training every day to constantly live that way, whereas most of us in the Western world don't. And by the time we're 60, 70, or 80, we got all these ailments, all these problems that we attribute to age instead of lifestyle. Sort of saying, like when I watch these people, it's a motivator to keep doing the things I'm doing, so that when I'm their age or even beyond, I can do it.
Yeah, I think just kind of like reflecting on like my own physical fitness journey and like learning more about the importance of mobility, and then just seeing how quote unquote stiff like I was from having an office job for like 3 to 5 years, and then you're just kind of in that like that, literally just like one position like all day. And then when I was working that job, I had a lot of like back pain, neck pain, etc. It's like, well, no wonder, and so then learned a lot of different stretching techniques and everything as well. And I think it's an aspect of physical fitness that a lot of people forget.
The other thing I'll say too is like for people that don't stretch, that may see this and go, I want to stretch, or stretching actually enhances muscle tonation, which a lot of us don't think about. We're just like, oh, we lift weights and that's going to give us this proper stomach. But if you actually stretch your muscles, you get really nice tonation of your body composition, right? So like it actually benefits you to physically look good and stretch too, not just be limber.
Interesting, guys. So let's turn our attention to, obviously, because health isn't just physical fitness, it's other areas. The big one, I think, actually, is nutrition. I've had a lot of conversations with you, Rich, around nutrition, and Rob, we kind of spoke about it before. And it's come up a few times on the podcast recently, especially with the standard American diet and like how that's kind of like infiltrated like all of the West, right? I had a guest on probably be like last episode when this goes out. And Rich, I connected you with him, Dr. Stefano Sinaproci. Hopefully I pronounced his name right. He's like very passionate about what he talks about, and I definitely recommend you guys to check out that episode. And a lot to say about standard American diet and etc. Which I think, like, to be honest, let's call it like the standard Western diet, right? Because it's kind of like now obviously here in the UK and stuff as well, so it's not just the States. When it comes to nutrition, for me, focus on like number one principle, right? It's like focus on whole food, single ingredient foods, right? So like, Rob, we start with you. Do you have any principles that when it comes to nutrition? And what I will say, like my overall approach to health is I kind of look through health as like doing the things that humans have been doing the longest. And so that's kind of where like the whole foods kind of aspect comes into that, because many years ago they weren't eating Rice Krispies or Cocoa Pops, right? So that's kind of like where kind of some of my principles kind of align. But yeah, Rob, for you, how do you look through, what lens do you look at through nutrition? Any principles you follow that help you stay on track?
Yeah, it's something that I've been going through with my wife as we've, been living together and having kids. Something that we've become much more conscious of over the past several years. So, like you said, whole foods, single ingredient foods, cooking for ourselves as much as possible at home rather than ordering out or eating out. Those are like the staples. As far as groceries, we buy organic stuff, and then there's like the more sneaky products. Like if there's anything in the organic section that's packaged, but may contain, like seed oils or food colorings or things like that you wouldn't know by looking at the branding of it. There's a lot of those too. So, checking out, really reading the ingredients on products to make sure that there's nothing in there that you don't want. If you are going to go for something that's prepackaged, those are basically like I'd say the principles that we try to follow pretty rigidly.
And how do you manage with having young ones and kids, especially if they've just started, like, I know the system's a bit different, but like kindergarten, school,
Yeah.
and their friends are having like whatever their parents are feeding them, and they're like, oh, you like, or is that a challenge to come? I guess I'm curious.
It's a big challenge. It's a big challenge, and I don't have a really proper answer for you because it's something that we're currently navigating. But we do try to encourage healthy choices with our daughter, particularly because she's at the age where she's got friends and she goes to birthday parties and stuff. So as far as what all the other kids are eating, we do let her make her own choices, and she's not forbidden to eat cake or French fries or drink juice or anything like that. But I think we have informed her well enough that she can make decisions based on what she feels she should be having, and sometimes we're very surprised at the choices that she makes. When everybody else is reaching for pizza and cupcakes, she'll go for some vegetables or something like that. So that's nice to see, and it stems from what we do at home. It's the habits that we have at home that kind of trickle out, because we don't try to forbid anything. I think that can cause other problems down the road when you try to prevent children from doing stuff. But it's more of an education thing. And just to build off of that, I've spoken about this a few times. Like, I'm kind of appalled at the way that children are marketed to by food companies, and you see it a lot on TV commercials. We don't watch a lot of TV, but whenever I do turn on like a kids channel and see the cereal commercials and the like Rice Krispies and all of these things that are marketed towards kids, and then to see other children have those as their snacks at school, that marketing works, and it's a shame. Like, I feel that there should be a pushback against that because it's really terrible.
Rich, what's your thoughts?
I think everyone knows how I feel about those.
Yeah, I have a sense.
Yeah, I mean, same thing. Like, I agree with Rob. I think there should be some legislation or, some type of management around the preying on children's eyes, right? How the characters look at you directly in the eye, the colors, the level of where they sit on the grocery store shelves. These are all strategic marketing initiatives that they do for every consumer, but they're preying on children that don't know how to make the best decisions for themselves. And as a parent, when you're in the grocery store, matter of fact, I can remember as a kid grabbing stuff off the shelves, and my mom would be like, "We're not having that. Like, you're not taking that home." It's real, right? To Rob's point, it's real. I think kind of what Rob said, like, a lot of it comes from the education in the household, and you hope that will build enough of a foundation for them to make strategic decisions on their own at that age, without creating fear or too much emphasis on negative things. Like just last night, I let them have some Italian chocolate. That's probably not great for them, but I'm not gonna make a thing of it, because if I do, then it's gonna cause more of them to push the other way. But I do agree, like, it is a little bit like unsettling the amount of control that they have over product placement, direct-to-consumer marketing, preying on children's, emotional reactions and colors and all these things. So yeah, I'm not a huge fan. And there's been a lot of stuff out there where people talk about, hey, you had these things as kids, back in the 80s, because I grew up in the 80s. Yes, but the truth is that the things that were in those products do differ today. There are way more additives. There are way more different types of sugar alternatives, addictive or hyper palatable ingredients that are keeping you hooked on these things. So it's not the same. Not that they were great for you back then, but it's not the same. I think it's worse for the kids today. So that's kind of my stance on that. I think it's a fine balance, like Rob said. You just kind of, raising kids where they're exposed to their peers eating these things, and you can control so much of that environment. You just want to build a foundation around them. the funny thing is too, to Rob's point, like when we were just in Sicily, look, their breakfast is not an American breakfast. I mean, it's coffee and pastries. And in Sicily, the biggest thing is granita, which is basically shaved ice, sugar, and flavoring, right? So it could be lemon, it could be something else. So the breakfast is not all that great, even for Sicilians and things like that. But my daughter, after like 2 days, basically said to me, I don't want this. Like, I don't want more sugar for breakfast. Like, can you make me eggs? Can you make me, some toast with peanut butter? Like simple things. So, like to Rob's point, I think from growing up in a household, her 9 years of how we cook, we shop, we eat, we grow our own food, have a big garden out back. I think same thing. I think she's got some pre-programming. It's like, it's not palatable to me. I don't want to eat this. It doesn't fill me up. It doesn't taste good. I feel tired. I'm hungry. I want to eat real food, But I guess to answer your first question too, to go back to that, like dietary behaviors, I don't think it differs too much from the group, right? It's very much like organic or sustainable or things I'm growing or things I can, get in my environment that are healthy, that are whole foods. I don't fear fruit. I don't fear certain vegetables. I don't fear grains if they agree with me. I make sure that I prep them the right way so that they're not causing bloating or, issues like that. I focus much more on a balanced plate. I know there's a huge push right now for protein. I think everything in the Western world is in extremes. So it's like now the focus is protein, 1 pound, 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight goal. But in my opinion, I think it's all balanced. So I balance my plate. A third protein, a third vegetables, maybe a third of like a rice or a gluten-free pasta or a sweet potato. But, generally speaking, it's like maybe 2. I'll have protein in 1 vegetable or protein in 2 vegetables. And I kind of balance them out in thirds. And that's basically how I eat. Sometimes I fast, sometimes I don't. Depends if I'm hungry. If I had a big training session, I'm going to eat. And I kind of just stick to the real food thing. And here's the crazy part. If you eat real food 90% of the time, you don't even have to worry about weight or body composition or obesity or blood sugar issues or any of the stuff that we've talked about in these podcasts. Like, you just eat a good diet and you do your workout and you're solid. You don't have to worry.
There's a guy I follow called Sean Stevenson. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar. He's got a really good book called
He's the big nutrition
Eat
guy,
Smarter.
right?
Yeah, Eat Smarter. He's got a podcast, the Model Health Show. I bought his cookbook end of last year. And one principle that I like that he shares is, in terms of obviously food nutrition, is that to like upgrade the quality of like some of our favorite foods, right? So let's just say we love, I don't know, a chocolate brownie, right? Like, we don't have to go to the shop and buy a chocolate brownie, right? Like, we can make our own at home by using better ingredients. And I'm just kind of curious on, Rob, we restart with you and then Rich, like your like, I guess your thoughts on that, because that's something that I resonated with, like, knowing, and it kind of alludes on that in terms of no food is like technically like a bad food. It's the ingredients they use that make it like a bad, quote unquote, like a bad food or an unhealthy food, etc. Right? So like you could have, so here we call them chips. So if you guys like, fries, etc. Cooked in, seed oils, etc. Or you could cook them in, a much better oil, using potatoes freshly grown out of your garden, right? So like it's there's so much like nuance to this. But yeah, Rob, like what's your thoughts on actually like that as the principal? Have you come across Sean Stevenson beforehand? Curious on your thoughts there.
I'm not sure if I've come across Sean Stevenson, but I will check him out because I'm curious now. But yeah, I totally agree with that principle, and it's something that we do in our house all the time. My wife is really good about it actually, because she's a very good baker and good with recipes and stuff like that. So she makes all kinds of delicious things with ingredients that you wouldn't expect. Like, she makes a great pizza, and the dough has Greek yogurt in it. It's fantastic. It comes out really nice and fluffy. all kinds of different healthy muffins and like breakfast food recipes that you can make with just simple ingredients, nothing complicated, and no garbage in there. So yeah, we do that all the time, and it's a real, it's not only is it a healthy option, but it's a money saver too for not having to go and purchase all of these pre-made things.
Yeah, definitely. Rich?
So similar. I actually love Sean's work. I've been following Sean for a long time. I know his stuff, and I don't disagree. There's a woman called Danielle Walker, who my sister turned me on to her many years ago when I switched over my diet, and she makes great recipes because she's I think she had UC or Crohn's. Maybe it's UC. I think she had ulcerative colitis. So she started adapting recipes that were, sweets and hearty and all these different types of foods. And my wife uses a lot of those recipes. And then similarly, I cook a ton. So I'll make, like, what Rob says, like I make sourdough pizza and I'll ferment it 72 hours. So it really gets down that gluten content. You get a lot of good bacteria in it. You don't get the bloating. You don't get the brain fog. But same thing, we'll make brownies at home with maybe almond flour or cassava flour, or maybe sometimes rice flour, which I don't prefer because it's high glycemic, but we do. And generally, like to your point earlier, the question is, yeah, I think the ingredients matter, right? Like, what are you sourcing? What's in it? And usually when you're making homemade sweets, like we make, it's a couple ingredients, maple syrup or honey, maybe monk fruit or stevia. And then it's some types of these milled flours that are nice, and maybe a couple extra things. Like sometimes we throw a vegetable in it, like zucchini or carrots, with some really nice dark cacao, just straight cacao, right? And now you're getting a lot of these benefits from the food versus like it becoming like this demonized sweet that you're eating at night. The funny thing is we do eat these things and it doesn't change my body composition. Like I don't put on weight from having these types of sweets in our house. I don't know, Rob, if it's the same for you, but like, it doesn't really change. Like, eating this stuff at night, sometimes at 8 o'clock, like it's not changing our body composition,
Yeah, it's the same for me. And there's also the psychological element where you don't feel guilt about indulging in those things either. So it's again, not like that positive and negative association thing that we are talking before with the workouts. You don't have to deal with that either.
Totally agree.
Yeah, I can relate. So on Sunday evening, I had like homemade ice cream with like this homemade like chocolate kind of thing. It like tastes great, right? Like the homemade ice cream had like 3 ingredients in it, and so and I feel like it. I don't know if you guys kind of sense this as well. It like improves. But yeah, so like improves, and you get a deeper appreciation for like food as well. I feel like because you're closer to the ingredients rather than I don't know, ring up home takeaway or like just go to a fast food restaurant. Like when you're much closer to your food and you're making it or you're growing it, like the next thing I want to get into is actually growing my own food, right? Fruits, vegetables, and stuff. So that's my goal moving forward. But I don't know if you guys find it like you have a quote unquote better relationship or more grateful kind of appreciative relationship with food. Do you guys find that?
I do, man. I definitely do. I'm a big believer of being as close to your food source as possible, because that's what our ancestors did, and that's what kept people healthy. And it does make you happy when you're a part of the process. So even if you're buying minimally processed stuff like milled flours or whatever, but you're creating something out of them, there's something neurochemically that happens with the engagement of food. There's an excitement, there's a natural dopamine, rush, and then there's I don't know, I was talking to Rob about this, or you, Luke, I can't remember, but in all the years of reading, understanding that when we're interacting and prepping our food, our body starts to anticipate that. It develops enzymes in the mouth to start digesting food properly. Whereas if you just go and buy the food and literally smell it for 2 seconds and eat it, the body's not as prepped biochemically to like take that in and absorb it the right way through the gut. So like, yeah, I think there's just a lot of magic to being close to food. The other thing is like, being someone who grew up Italian in a household where all we ever did was cook. My mom was always cooking. My grandmother and grandfather, everyone was always cooking. And then going to Italy as many times as I have and watching people like the very first thing Italians think about when they get up is what they're making for dinner. It's literally, that's our lifestyle. What are we making for dinner today? So, but people are so happy. They're so content with being connected with the food and going to the markets and thinking about, what am I going to make tonight? Like, what concoction can I make? And I don't know. Yeah, I just think there's a lot of like maybe untouched science to like just being close to your food and like the process of it.
Maybe it's like that creativity kind of aspect as well. You know, I sense that when, you know, you're in the kitchen, it's like, oh, what can I create? You know, what can I make? You know, it kind of brings out that kind of creative side. Rob, did you have any additional thoughts?
Yeah, I think that when something I've noticed is that when I cook something, I pay more attention to the way that it tastes when I'm eating it. And I think it's because, you know, it's something that I made, so I want to make sure that it's good and that I'm not feeding something gross to my family, but also that I'm, you know, maybe improving in my craft. And maybe it came out particularly great this time, or maybe it was missing a little something that I'll make a mental note for next time. So it turns into a bit of a skill acquisition thing at the same time.
Yeah, and I just final thought on this would be, for me, I actually find there's something also when you like make something for someone else. You know, I think that's like one of the best feelings I get as well. And then I would definitely want it perfect, Rob. You know, like if I'm making something for someone else, I'm definitely trying to perfect it. Where, you know, for myself, yeah, of course, you know, I don't want to eat something that maybe tastes really horrible. But if it's for someone else, you know, I just think there's that extra bit of care that goes into it. In some of the habits, let's focus on sleep as well. Rob, what's your sleep habits? Do you have any?
I'm probably not the best person to talk about sleep right now because I have
yeah, true.
I have a
Kids.
16-month-old who is. I thought that my daughter gave us a hard time with sleep when she was little, but this little guy is giving us a run for our money right now. So my sleep isn't great. We're just trying to do the best that we can.
What would your sleep routine
maybe Rich
look
has
like?
some insights.
I have some insights. I have my wife do it. No.
I got that part covered.
My wife's hit me a couple times from our last kid. She's like, "You're not going to get up?" I'm like, "I'm exhausted." She's like, "What do you think I am?" I got my hand slapped a couple times. No, I don't. You know, it's tough raising kids to get sleep. I mean, I've like you said, I've done it twice, and it's not easy. Yeah, you just kind of have to like do your best. Like one of the things that I learned, which Rob, you probably learned this too, is I remember people always saying to me, when your kid naps, you nap.
Yeah.
So that you get the downtime when they get the downtime. And it's hard to do because you want to start doing the to-dos when the kid's down. But man, the times that I napped when my kids napped, I felt a million times better when they got up and I got up and I was like, okay, I can like second wind, like whatever I got to do to, you know, get stuff done. Yeah, the other thing was just like go to bed as early as you can because expect to get up as many times as possible.
Yeah, I've definitely done that a few times, the nap when they nap thing, and you're right, it does feel good. But yeah, it's, you know, the to-do list doesn't go away, so you're always just thinking about trying to maximize your efficiency. But you know, when some things that I do try to incorporate to make it easier are like you know, a bedtime routine. I know you've spoken about that before, Luke, with various people, but trying to limit screen time before going to bed. I try not to eat or drink, you know, a couple hours before going to bed. And just, yeah, not expose myself to too much stimulation and just kind of like wind down so that I can fall asleep easier. And from my understanding, the best sleep that you get is before midnight anyway. So, you know, if you can manage that portion of the night, then you're in good shape, even if you get interrupted later on or early in the morning.
I would just like to take a quick pause and break to mention, are you ready to take your health and wellness to the next level? Meet Real Superfoods, the wellness brand dedicated to making superfoods accessible and convenient for everyone for everyday use. Imagine starting your day with the energy, clarity, and vitality that you need to thrive, all from simple, natural ingredients. That's what Real Superfoods has to offer. From nutrient-packed powders to delicious, easy-to-use blends, Real Superfoods make it simple to incorporate the best that nature has to offer into your daily routine. Whether you're blending up a smoothie, stirring a quick drink, or getting a quick snack, Real Superfoods provides a convenient way to nourish your body and your mind. But it's not just about you. Real Superfoods is committed, right? Committed to sustainability, ensuring that all of their products are not just good for you, but they're also good for the planet. By choosing Real, you support a brand whose values align with the environment and promotes a healthier future for everyone. A win-win. Join the movement towards a healthier, happier you with Real Superfoods. Visit realsuperfoods.com or just click the link in the show notes and use code Luke Burrows, my name, for 20% off your first order. That's realsuperfoods.com or click the link in the show notes and use code Luke Burrows, my name, for 20% off your first order and make a small change today for a big impact tomorrow. Now, let's get back to today's episode. Interesting. Rich, what does your sleep habits look like?
Our kids are staying up later nowadays, so what used to be like a 9:30 in bed reading, fall asleep by 10, is now turned into like 10:30, 11, because my little one is just she's got FOMO. Like, she does not want to go to bed. She just thinks like the day can't end, Dad. It can't end. I'm having so much fun. So we end up going to bed a little bit later. So we're probably in bed by 10:30, 11, up by 6:30, starting our day. One of the things, though, is like that's really helped me, and I've been a huge like advocate of this, is that I will take a supplement stack at night to help with the stress and the winding down. So I take magnesium biglycinate by Thorne with L-theanine, and that to me is like a game changer. When I don't take that, I don't wake up as lively. When I do, I have a really good night's rest. I wake up energetic, clear. It works for me. So I'll supplement. And then the other thing I do is kind of similar to Rob. I try not to get in front of devices too much. Sometimes I'll jump in the sauna before bed because I find that sauna just helps my body just really wind down, slow down the thinking. You get this high heat and you come out and you kind of cool off, kind of like when you take a shower, you get that feeling. And it just puts my body in a good place to kind of rest and go to bed. So yeah, those are some of the things I do, and I also, I make sure that I'm doing things in the day that influence my sleep at night. So getting out and walking in nature first thing helps me be tired at night. Getting my workout earlier in the day helps me be tired at night. What I've noticed is as I've gotten older, the more if I work out at night, I'm kind of way too stimulated to go to bed, because I got all these endorphins flying around and I feel good and it's like I'm too awake. So those are some of the things that I do to kind of just maintain the best sleep I can. Not perfect.
On the supplement side. So have you ever experimented with, is it glycine? I've heard that's good for sleep.
Glycine's good. Yeah, glycine's a good thing you can take. I mean, there's a ton of different things that people can use or stack or try. I think it comes down to like what works for the individual, right? Like, how do they respond to melatonin? How do they respond to, glycine or L-tryptophan or, anything else, right? Because we all respond differently depending on, our biochemical makeups. Ashwagandha is a great stress reducer, and sometimes people will take those at night. Melatonin for me was kind of like, I don't know, I mean, maybe I'll share this. Like, melatonin's like the big one that everyone reaches for. What I found out was, like, for me, I didn't do well. I was very groggy on it, taking it, even at lower doses. And then the other thing is like, from some of the research, you could become too dependent on the melatonin where it actually jacks up your sleep. Like, it jacks up the way that you naturally wind down, like, your circadian rhythms and stuff. So I just never had a good result with melatonin.
I heard something similar in terms of like it interferes with our body's natural melatonin kind of process. I probably need to go back and re-listen to that podcast a few times to be able to teach it. But I have heard it can interfere. So of course that's sleep. Stress management. So Rob, obviously you got young kids, so I'm imagining stressful. What are you doing from a stress perspective, or to manage your stress? Is it when you have the time? I understand the situation.
That's
right now,
a good question.
Is it meditation, breath work? Is it nature, getting out of the house? Going in a dark room.
lately, just getting out of the house because I work from home. I spend a lot of time at home, and so that's where, when stress does arrive, it's usually in my home environment, which is not really the ideal place where you want to be experiencing stress, because you'd like to come home to get away from those feelings. But when it does happen, yeah, going out to take a walk, getting into nature as much as possible, getting some sunlight, on your skin. Those are key things for me, and just getting away from noise and overstimulation at times. There's times where I um, feel like an overabundance of information, and I have to turn everything off. And even if I'm working, I won't be listening to a podcast in the background. I won't be listening to music at the same time. I just want to focus in on what I'm doing and try to get into kind of a flow state if I can. Those are the things that kind of help me out, and prevent me from getting overwhelmed, and just focusing on one task at a time when possible.
So
I think those are the
interesting
key things.
question. Yeah, sorry, I can interrupt that. Interesting point I pick up on there. I don't know if you guys have experienced it. So like, although I'm still in my 20s, but like, even though the old, quote unquote, older I've got, I realized like my inability to be able to get into flow state or focus with background noise, and I get kind of, yeah, like it's interesting when I just kind of picked up on that, what you said there, Rob. Like, now most time I need it like dead quiet, right, to be able to just like get myself in that state. Where, go back, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, like I would have the soccer on in the background, right, and I could write an email newsletter. Where now it's something I've noticed about myself. So don't know if anyone has any insights or can resonate with that, but yeah, from like a more mental perspective, I guess is something I've noticed.
Yeah, I think, well, I kind of regard things as like you go through these different seasons, in your life. And so like there's times where sure you can deal with multiple things, like all these stimuli going on at once, and it's actually a pleasure, and it's nice to like be able to listen to, a sitcom in the background while you're writing something up, and you just have this, like, you're in this happy place and everything is working out. And then there's other times when you feel like this is just too much for me. I need to just focus on one single thing, and block out all the noise. So it depends on, it's about recognizing where you are in your life at that moment, and doing the right thing according to that.
Interesting. Rich, stress management, where are you at with that?
Nature, exercise, meditation, grounding. Those are big ones for me. But yeah, like kind of Rob said, like I work at the house. So I'm at the house a lot. I've got a lot going on in this house. So I like to get out in nature, no distractions, no phone, not listen to anything but the nature around me. That really helps. And it also helps me just get mental clarity. I'll get a de-stress effect, but I'll also get some clarity to move into my day or into my week. And then exercise, I think, is one of the best stress busters for me. Like, if I'm having tough days, man, if I could just get that energy out, I just come back rejuvenated, clear, energetic, focused. Equally, I do like times where it's super quiet. I don't do well with a lot of chaos, like a lot of noise. I actually can't stand it. I can't think, like I got 2 kids talking to me, my wife talking to me, TV's in the background, caretaker. It's too much noise for me. And so like, I just need to be silent. So there's times that I need that a lot. And then other times, like if I'm relaxing, I may just get on my mat, my PMF mat, and play some of those naturescapes, like nature sounds that help me just kind of like bring my frequency into the right place. And that helps me just kind of like let my mind drift instead of cycle. So those are some of the things I do. And then I obviously do adaptogens and eat well, because all those things help you, become really resilient to stress. So
Interesting, guys. Well, so for me, like I also see our relationships as part of our health, as well, like the health of our relationships, etc. Relationships is probably like my weakest area, and I've had some like insights around this, because like I feel like exercise, in a way, like I can control that. Like I can decide whether I go out or go for a run, or you know go outside and use my resistance bands. Nutrition, I decide what I put in my mouth. Sleep, I decide if I wear my blue light blockers, or and what time I go to sleep. Relationships, though, it's like, oh shit, now it involves other people. It's just like, can't control other people. So yeah, in the time we have left, like, what should we, and obviously relationships are personal, so obviously I'm not like asking for like personal information or anything, but like, how do you approach relationships when it kind of comes to health? Do you see it as part of like health as well, like myself, or do you see it a bit differently? Yeah, what's your take on that?
You want Rob to go or me to go first? You want to take it, Rob? Or
Okay, sure, I'll take it away. So yes, relationships have a big impact on health. I think I think we've probably all heard the thing about, and this is not just limited to romantic relationships, but you are the combination of the 5 people in your life that you spend the most time with. So those people will rub off on you in some way, shape, or form. So you want to make sure that you're around people who are imparting their healthy habits onto you, and not having adverse effects. Although we all do have people in our life that we don't necessarily agree with, or so there's a lot to manage when it comes to relationships. But if we're talking about like a partner, then yeah, being on the same page as far as health is concerned is a big thing for me particularly, and it's a journey that I've gone on with my wife over the course of many years. We've been together since we were teenagers in high school, so it's been a long-term relationship. Married for 7 years now, and yeah, it's been a journey. Like, we've grown up together. So my situation is I guess somewhat unique. Like, not everybody marries their high school sweetheart. I'm pretty lucky for that. But it's been just kind of a learning and growing experience together, making sure that we're always communicating effectively, voicing our opinions about things, and making sure that we're on the same page with everything that we do in our lives. And that's been the key, I think. Yeah, communicating and just making sure that we're together, in every decision that we make, and everything that we decide to do.
Rich, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, Rob hit a lot of it on the head. It's you've got things you can control and things you can't in your world. What's funny is, like, as I've gotten older, because I was a people pleaser most of my life, so it was always like, just do what people want you to do, and show up to this thing and show up to that thing and go to this because they asked you. And what if you don't go? It was always like trying to please other people. But what I realized, like, over the last 10 years, is that was draining me. And it was sucking the life out of me sometimes to be around people I didn't want to be around, or do things I didn't want to do that weren't aligned to my compass, like my total internal compass. So I like, one of the biggest things I've gotten really better at for myself is saying no and not going to things or socializing at certain things that I just don't want to do. Because, like what Rob said, I just don't end up feeling great about it or feeling good in those experiences. So I have to be very protective of that. And the other thing is, I think, being a dad of 2, having, I've been married to my wife for 10 years. I met her in college, so we've known each other for a really long time too. They're my priority, right? Like, my nucleus here is my priority. And if I'm extending myself into circumstances that don't make me feel good or bring me down or change my frequency, then that falls into my personal life, in my relationships here, which I don't like. So I've really, to be honest, like, I've distanced myself from people that I love. I've cut people out entirely from my life over the last 10 years that I just found toxic or selfish, because I started to kind of stand up for myself and what I believe in for myself and kind of govern my own life. So I think relationships are very powerful for your health. And then who you're spending time with with those relationships is really powerful. And you've got to also know when to say no or distance yourself from things that you can to preserve your own health. So that's kind of my thoughts on it. But the thing I'll also say is that we know that you could do everything right in terms of your diet and your movement and all these things. But, when you look at the COVID stats and the things that are happening in these other Eastern cultures, European cultures, it's clear that community and relationships is crucial for mental health and longevity. So you cannot have the other things without relationships.
Yeah, that's why so I see health through a holistic kind of lens, and relationships is one of those pillars, right? Because over especially the last year, I've realized how important social connection is, which plays directly into obviously relationships. It is a weak area that, you know, I'm working on, and as I shared beforehand, because it's not something that you're dealing with other people, right? So it's not something I have direct kind of control over, and, you know, it's about learning to live with others. So there
Yeah,
we go, guys. Thank you so much for your time. Yeah, Rich, go on.
No, I was gonna say, like, just admittedly, like you, I actually, like, more recent over the last year, I've struggled with it too, because I've got other things that pull me, you know, besides work, right? I've got all these personal responsibilities, kid things, my father living with us, like, that at the end of the week, as much as I want to socialize with people, I'm like, I'm wiped. So I end up, my relationships have taken a back burner because of the problems in my life. And then I have nothing left to go socialize. I'm just wiped, you know? So yeah, that's something I need to work on myself too.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I'm trying to do is integrate social relationships with other areas. So, for example, a couple of friends, you know, I would say like now, you know, I'm going because I walk quite a lot. Walking's good for me for like mental clarity. Obviously, got the physical kind of aspect to that, and just generally health. You know, I think Rich, we've spoken about that, like just the power of walking, right?
Yeah.
So like now, you know, because before I kind of felt like it's my like personal thing that I do is like actually just invite people along to walk with me, you know? And so I'm still moving my body, but I'm still also getting that social connection, whether that's with friends or family. And actually the interesting thing has been the more I've done that, the more that I've actually helped, more particularly with family, helping them to move and get more active, you know, which
That's great.
impacts their mood and kind of mental space, which actually improves the quality of like our relationship because they're in a better place because they're their best self more often because they're moving and stuff. So yeah, as I said beforehand, holistic approach, it's all interconnected. So I'm trying to integrate and different areas together, and that's one way. You know, I know a lot of people that integrate social life with like meals and like food and stuff, right? Like, you know, many cultures around the world do that, right? And so I think sometimes it's about like, for me anyway, I'm just trying to learn how I can integrate kind of different areas of my life together. But there we go. It's all part of this experience, right? And
Yeah,
just doing
love that idea.
the best that we can.
Yeah, that's powerful.
Guys, thank you so much. Rich, where can people keep keep up to date with everything that you've got going on, everything at Vital Habits? Where's the best place for people to reach you?
Yeah, best place is thevitalhabits.com. Offer one-on-one coaching. You know, people want to do an hour consult. I'm happy to do that too. That's the best place to reach me if you want to contact me. I have social channels, Instagram, YouTube, which admittedly I think I'm going to start trying to put more content on there. I just haven't mustered up the time or energy, but that's something I want to work on as well. Yeah, so you can find me there. You know, those are probably the most prime channels that I'm on, and yeah, that's where you can find me.
I'm Rob.
Yep, I'm also on social media under my name, Rob Flis, and I have my podcast called Breakthrough, which you can find on YouTube. So yeah, that's my work in progress. That YouTube channel. So invest as much energy in that as I can. So if anybody wants to check that out, please do.
Yeah, and a lot of energy goes into content creation. I know that firsthand. I feel like that's my life at the moment, right? Like wake up, exercise, content. You know, like but there we go. Guys, thank you so much. Love this one. Different dynamic, obviously having the three of us. Respect you guys like massively. Like learn so much from both of you. Love Rob's podcast, rich your insights, and so on everything health. It's really awesome to be connected with you guys and to have connected you guys together as well. So thank you for your time today. It's been a pleasure.
Likewise. Thanks,
Definitely.
guys.
Awesome. Keep up the good work, Luke.
I hope that you've enjoyed that episode with myself, Rich, and Rob, as we have been exploring the topic of health and sharing the principles that we abide by to navigate health and to become the healthiest, best versions of ourselves. What did you take away from this episode? I would love to hear and see what you took away from this episode. So if you're watching on YouTube, leave a comment below. If you're listening on the podcast, in particular on Spotify, then you can also leave a comment there as well. And if you're listening on other podcast platforms, head on over to one of those to leave a comment, to leave a comment, or reach me on my social media at Real Luke Burrows. I would love to hear what you took away from this episode and your principles for health. Do you have any principles for health? If so, what are they? I would love to hear them, because it's by sharing, being open, sharing what's working for us, sharing our principles to navigate the field of health, which can so often be overwhelming, that we get to learn from each other and grow alongside each other, which is something I'm all about, and building that community. So thank you for stopping by, listening to this episode. I look forward to talking to you, seeing you in the next episode.